Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Dill. It's made official Tuesday afternoon. Kirk Campbell out as Michigan's offensive coordinator, a move that I think just needed to be made. And I think a lot of Michigan fans like ourselves feel that way. We could go into what didn't work with Kirk Campbell as the offensive coordinator in 2024. Yes, it started with quarterback play, which was not good enough, which partially you can kind of put on Kirk Campbell because he was also the quarterback's coach as well, even last year. But more importantly, the offensive scheme was really just a disaster. I mean, there was zero vertical passing attack, very little creativity in terms of how you wanted to run this offense. I think anybody who watched Michigan all 12 games this year kind of knew this was a decision that needed to be made. And I will start with this. Credit Sherrone Moore for making this decision. You see a lot of young head coaches not make the tough decisions that are normally the right one. This is a tough decision for any coach. You know, firing a guy that has been with your program the last couple of years, it wasn't an easy decision, but I think it was pretty clearly the right decision. Now the exciting part for us Michigan fans is, hey, who do we bring in as the offensive coordinator going into 2024? And Dill, what stands out to me the most, this is going to be an attractive spot. Like, we see what Michigan's doing on the recruiting trail, most notably with quarterback Bryce Underwood. There are going to be a lot of offensive coordinators that are salivating at the chance to work with Bryce Underwood over the next couple of years. I think we're going to have the pick of our litter. And you've seen some good offensive coordinators get hired. I think most notably Ben Arbuckle, who certainly I would have talked about if he wasn't at Oklahoma, would have made this list. A lot of other guys I think we can talk about as well. Now, before we get into it, as always, the Michigan fans, Dill, what a last couple of weeks for Michigan fans it's been. And as Michigan fans ourselves, it's been a blast talking ball with y'all in the comment section. We appreciate all the support y'all have shown the fellas. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. More importantly, let it fly in the comment section. We got, 6 names we want to talk about, Dill? A lot of other names you could mention. So let it fly in the comment section. Appreciate you guys. We're going to be updating this list as we hear some names that are connected to this job. Let's go with our target number 1. And from the Michigan fans that I've talked to in the comments section, y'all are on board with this one too. Maryland head coach Mike Locksley. Now, Maryland hasn't moved on from Coach Locks right now. They just finished a 4-8 season, lost 5 straight to finish 2024. There's like 2 different scenarios that could push Coach Locksley to Michigan. One, Maryland just straight up fires him. I think secondly, we've seen head coaches at kind of middle of the pack programs who are just kind of stuck treading water move on. You just saw it last year with Chip Kelly going to Ohio State. I think that could be where Coach Locksley is with Maryland as well. Why Coach Locksley? In my opinion, he checks every single box you want as an offensive coordinator. 10 out of 10 hire for me. 1. I mean, you look at, Dill, I'll give you the T-box. I've talked for 3 straight minutes. Coach Locksley, I know you're high on him too. Sell us on Coach Locksley.
Yeah, you said it. He checks every box. He's ultra proven. Obviously, probably the one issue with Kirk Campbell is he was the opposite of that. Locksley's been great wherever he's been. I think he recruits at an exceptionally high level. Obviously, with his time at Alabama, bringing in elite wide receivers, bringing in elite quarterbacks, all those things you want to see, but also developing quarterbacks at a high level. I look at the way Tua developed under him at Bama. I look at the way Talia, who I don't think was the generational talent that Tua was, kind of was able to be really, really productive at Maryland. I think you see the way he's kind of worked with quarterbacks. That's probably the big one because you obviously got your guy in Bryce Underwood coming in. You need to put an offensive coordinator in who is going to maximize him, as you've said in the past many times.
That's the biggest question. Like, what offensive coordinator can maximize Bryce Underwood is storyline number 1. The most underrated part about Coach Locksley, and you mentioned it, one, he just puts points up on the board. He knows how to call plays and score touchdowns. That's going to be object number 1. Develops quarterbacks, and recruits at a high level. That last box that I think is really intriguing with Coach Locksley, wide receiver development as well. You go back to that Alabama offense in 2018, Devonta Smith, Jerry Jeudy, Jalen Waddle. It was a legendary wide receiver room that you saw in Alabama, filled with playmakers. That's also been kind of a dark spot for Michigan in terms of the pass catcher development and the pass catcher recruiting. When you carry that kind of baggage, the baggage of, hey, I've worked with guys that you are seeing be some of the best wide receivers in the NFL on Sundays, you're going to attract talent. Coach Locksley, to me, and also I think one other thing is Sherrone Moore still a young head coach. I don't hate the idea of surrounding him with a coach that's been the head man as well and kind of can help Sherrone Moore navigate this new era of college football. To me, it's a 10 out of 10 hire. Dill, I'll kick this one to you because I know this is your guy, Brendan Marion at UNLV. Every single coaching hot board you see for teams that are looking for OCs, Brendan Marion is normally at the top of the list. Sell the people. I'm Brendan Marion coming to Michigan.
No, obviously not the quarterback proven guy, if you will, that some of these other names are going to throw out there are. But you talk about just pure creativity and an offensive mind who I think, put up points wherever he's been. You see what he's done with this UNLV offense and how he's rejuvenated it to being one of those, like, again, for what it is, like one of those G5 teams that just score points.
It's an elite offense still. And what I'll maybe push back on is it's not necessarily super proven. It's only been 2 years. So he hasn't like been a ton of spots and putting up points. But the last 2 years, like it is hard to argue with this UNLV team putting up points. And I loved his one sentence description of the go-go offense. Say downhill rushing attack. These are Brendan Marion's words. Downhill rushing attack with a vertical passing attack. That kind of sums up how we wanted to look at Michigan, where, hey, we want to control the line of scrimmage. We want to run the football, ideally in a little bit more creative ways, especially with Bryce Underwood and what he can do as an athlete. And then we want to push the ball down the field. It seems like whenever Michigan's offense is humming, you're establishing the run, and then you're working play action and pushing it vertically down the field in the passing attack. That's what Brendan Marion does. From a personnel standpoint, that kind of fits what Michigan wants to do from a T.
And a dude who I think is going to be an elite recruiter and develop for wide receivers. That's probably the one thing. I look at the way his UNLV wideouts play, the way the Pitt and Texas wideouts play. The guys he was coaching there, if you will, really, really excellent play from those type of guys like Jordan Addison and some of those other guys he's worked with. But the one probably reservation is, what is he going to do for Bryce Underwood? Is he going to max him out? That, to me, is the fundamental sticking point. Now, I'm not saying he won't do it because you just haven't necessarily seen him work with a quarterback of that ilk. He's had to deal with what he's had to deal with at UNLV, which, like, they can't go get a Bryce Underwood, obviously. Yep. So they play a little bit different. Now, I think his mind, you just look, I see how well he knows this game. I don't really doubt that he can go work with quarterbacks at a high level. But I do wonder if you need to go then bring in a really high-level quarterback.
It's more of the kind of offense, like that go-go offense that you hear Brendan Marion runs. It runs the football about 63% of the time. That's top 10 in the country. That's closer to military academy. And so it's like, is that leaning into Bryce Underwood and what he can do to this Michigan offense? That's the reservation that you probably have. But he has been a coach that up in the 2 years that you've seen him as the OC at UNLV has based his offense around the quarterbacks. Like, they had Matt Sluka running that offense early in the season. Matt Sluka ain't that good of a thrower, so we were running the football a lot. But you go back to Jaden Maiava in 2023, a little bit more passing. And so maybe he can tailor the offense a little bit more to the passing attack with Bryce Underwood. He checks a lot of boxes. I don't know if I'd probably give it I'd be damn excited if he is hired for Michigan, but I'd probably give it a 7 out of 10. Dill, here's another.
And honestly, to me, it'll be like, do you pair him with a great quarterbacks coach? Because then it would get
good. Yeah, agreed. Here's a great quarterbacks coach and offensive coordinator, Joe Sloan at LSU. Dill, Joe Sloan was the reason I think Bryce Underwood was so locked in on LSU in the first place. And I think Joe Sloan has a very good understanding of, one, developing quarterbacks. We saw him do it with Nuss this year, but also, more importantly, Jaden Daniels the last couple of years. He's really good at what he does. And can you get him from LSU? I think the Bryce Underwood pitch would work. Like, hey, you can make a lateral move to Michigan, but you get Bryce Underwood for the next couple of years. You talk about Joe Sloan. He has head coaching aspirations. Working with Bryce Underwood the next couple of years, putting up some really good offenses, and then maybe getting a P4 job, that would make a lot of sense for Joe Sloan. Love what he does with his offenses. Love what he does with his quarterbacks. Obviously can recruit very well in terms of getting Bryce Underwood to come to LSU. Out of 10, what do you got Joe Sloan at?
Yeah, he'd be high. He'd probably be like a 9 or something. Yeah, just because, again, he is kind of Bryce Underwood's guy at the end of the day. I look like you saw the development of that LSU offense, the way they obviously got Jaden Daniels working the way he was working, and turns him from a guy who I think we all looked at Arizona State as like, yeah, fun college quarterback, whatever, to being a legitimate top 5 pick. You look at Joe Sloan, he probably had a lot to do with that. So that's probably the main thing. Also, I think, LSU is a big program. Michigan's starting to swing the sword like they should have been probably doing for a long time.
And
they got the money to go get him. Again, you look at what Blake Baker's making. I think it's double what Joe Sloan's making.
Yeah.
Go double his salary. Give him a big raise. I think Michigan can go at least take the stab at him.
also, like, because of the fact that you're not paying Sherrone Moore what other elite programs are paying their head coaches.
I mean, Brian Kelly's banging down $10 million a year.
Yeah, so it does give you a little, and I think that's why you went and saw us sign Wink Martindale for what, $2 mil. You know, like it gives you a little leeway to really surround you, and that's how it should be. You know what I mean? Like you got a new head coach that is, clearly still learning on the job a little bit. Go surround him with elite coordinators. And Kirk Campbell just was not that guy, and we kind of knew he wasn't that guy. Joe Sloan, to me, really good hire. Dill, here's another one. Bobby Petrino, currently Arkansas's offensive coordinator, kicked around going and taking the Charlotte head coaching job. I think he wants to get out of Arkansas potentially. Been an NFL head coach, been a college football head coach, has honestly, outside of the off-the-field stuff, and this is why I like him as an OC, not a head coach. I don't know if he's the best leader or man. I don't know if I want him as my head man. This dude knows how to get the best out of quarterbacks and score points on offense. And he has that experience of being a head coach at some really big programs and in the NFL. Bobby Petrino has a long track record of being a dang good offensive coordinator. This one would make a little bit of sense too.
This might be a 10 for me as well.
Really?
Look, aside from Mike Locksley, he might be as high as anyone because you kind of said it. I mean, he's worked with every style of quarterback. He's worked with Lamar's. He's worked with more of the pocket passers. He's worked with offenses that don't throw the ball a ton.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what personnel he's been put in front of. He does a really good job scoring points and finding a way. And that's probably been one huge issue, one glaring issue with this Michigan team is it didn't feel like they could really adjust to what they were what their limitations were, let's say. They just never found answers. Again, I think Bobby Petrino, I don't worry about him maximizing a Bryce Underwood because we've seen him maximize quarterbacks and get a lot out of quarterbacks. I just think he's such a smart, savvy offensive mind. He would be
That's
huge.
been in the game for so long, man. And he looks older than he is. He's only 63. Dude's been around for a long time.
Hard living on the motorcycle.
That's probably true. I like it. And you said something that's important, and I'd like to double down on the take, and that is these offensive coordinators that have shown they can have success with a multitude of different quarterbacks. That's something a lot of offensive coordinators struggle with. It's like, I can only operate if you give me this kind of quarterback. Like Jimbo Fisher is the best example. Like when he didn't have Jameis Winston, he was like clueless calling an offense. The offensive coordinators that can go from quarterback to quarterback and say, all right, this quarterback's a little bit different than this quarterback. All right, we're going to lean into this in this trade. This is what the offense is going to look like because this is where a quarterback excels, and then it's going to change next year. That's really important because you're not going to have the same quarterback for 10 years. It's college football. So I do like that trait. Dill, here's one that I don't know if I love it because, again, he's not one of those guys that you look at and say, oh, he's going to maximize Bryce Underwood. Buster Faulkner does the scheme up in offense, though. Like when you look at what he's doing at Georgia Tech, and I'm sure a lot of people saw it on Friday night against Georgia. They had Georgia's defense in hell. Like it just was a lot of pre-snap. You talk about the just horrible lack of creativity we've seen with this Michigan offense. Like even when they decided to go to some pre-snap motion and get creative, it was not all that creative. Buster Faulkner knows how to do it. He's going to window dress that rushing attack. He's going to lean into that rushing attack. The only reservation is he going to get Bryce Underwood where he needs to go? That's probably the question mark. How you feel about Buster Faulkner?
Yeah, because it is very gimmicky at Georgia Tech. And you could maybe make some of those similar arguments about the go-go offense with Brendan Marion. Fair enough. But I look, Buster Faulkner, you kind of said it. He is a very smart play caller. I think he just does know how to attack defenses in the way that, again, Michigan just couldn't do it this year. One thing I will add is he was the quarterback's coach for Georgia with Stetson Bennett. So, again, when he had the talent at his disposal a little more, I think he was around an offense that, I wouldn't mind seeing something similar to what Georgia was doing under Bennett, where, again, you probably can get more out of Underwood. You can be a little bit more. You can do more, obviously. But they got the most out of that.
They squeezed every drop of potential and probably more potential than what Stetson Bennett had. And yes, obviously, it was a very good offensive line. You had some really good running backs and elite defense. Stetson Bennett did not look like a walk-on quarterback when he played for Georgia. Buster Faulkner is the guy that I would love to have this year. You know what I mean? When we don't have a quarterback that we really trust, can we just scheme up a really dynamic rushing attack? I would love it. I think Buster Faulkner would have done a great job with this Michigan offense. With what it's going to be in 2025 and where I think we're trying to go on offense, probably not my favorite name. Last one, and a guy that I really like, and you could honestly mention both of the Indiana staffers. whether it's Shanahan, whether it's Tino Sinceri, or both. You said that. Like, why not just go get both? I don't hate it. Like, how can you not look at that Indiana offense and say that's what we want? Like, everything looks so easy for this Indiana offense, and we kind of saw Michigan show them that like, they didn't have NFL talent. Like, Michigan was whipping them up front. Ohio State did the same thing. Like, we saw that they didn't necessarily have those top-notch Power 4 guys, but they were scoring 40-plus points per game every single game. Everything looked so easy for quarterback Curtis Rourke, who I would remind everybody was a solid MAC quarterback at Ohio before getting maybe I'm getting cutting or selling Curtis Rourke a little short, was a very solid MAC quarterback at Ohio. And then he comes to the Big Ten and was top 5 in Heisman voting for the first 10 weeks of the season. You could sell me on this as well.
Yeah, because like you just take a little bit of that Cignetti magic. Now, I don't love Curt Cignetti as a guy. I feel like he is kind of annoying, especially if you are a Michigan fan or an Ohio State fan.
Yeah,
he did his little like beating his chest coming in, and you certainly see there's like levels to the Big Ten, if you will. So
he backed it up though. If we're being fair, man.
Yeah, no, he was, and that's probably why it's more annoying than it would have been if they went 5-7. They were very good this year. I think Michigan's a team that certainly can go make runs at these type of guys. Like the Indiana coordinator job is not the Michigan coordinator job. I think Michigan can go after both of them.
Look,
you're right. There was some magic in that team and in that offense, especially.
Where I think Michigan is going right now, and you're seeing it with the momentum they're creating on the recruiting trail. I don't think there's many offensive coordinators across the country that are off limits to Michigan. You know, there's some guys that might not want to make the lateral change, but I think Sherrone Moore can call just about anybody and get them picking up the phone when you have Bryce Underwood at quarterback. Now, if Sherrone and Dill, maybe that's why Sherrone Moore didn't go get an offensive coordinator before this year. It's like maybe he kind of knew that.
Yeah.
Like, if you're asking like Coach Locksley to move from Maryland to Michigan to take over this offense, and you told him that Davis Warren was not a shot at Davis Warren, he just beat an Ohio State for us, but told him Davis Warren was going to be a starting quarterback, Coach Locksley probably didn't even pick up, probably just button Sherrone Moore. Now with Bryce Underwood, it's like, hey, we're going to pick up the phone because you want to go work with a cat like that. I think it's going to be really exciting. Obviously, we'll continue to update the names as we hear it. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Going to be a fun next couple weeks. I'm fired up. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.